yeses to the right, 286. The noes to the left, 344. So the noes have it, the noes have it.
No deal. Britain's House of Commons rejects the proposed Brexit agreement for the third time. Now what? Hello, I'm Owen and this is The Heat. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. The English writer Charles Dickens' immortal words perhaps given new meaning in the age of Brexit. Prime Minister Theresa May put a stripped-down version of her twice-defeated Brexit divorce agreement to the vote on Friday. Ironically, she lost by 58 votes on the very day the UK was supposed to leave the European Union. For more, we turn now to CGTN's Jamie Owen in London. And Jamie, it's been quite a week in the House of Commons, of course. Take us through what happened.
Anna, good evening from Westminster, which has witnessed yet another one of those dramatic days in recent memory. On the day Britain was supposed to have left the European Union, MPs once again rejected Prime Minister Theresa May's EU withdrawal deal. This is now the third time the UK government has been defeated over its plans in the House of Commons. Tonight, the UK government and I guess the EU will be burning the midnight oil, trying to find a way through this political impasse. The opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has called for a UK general election. Here's a flavour of some of the exchanges in the House of Commons earlier. First up, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, with a rather ominous warning for MPs in the chamber.
This House has rejected no deal. It has rejected no Brexit. On Wednesday, it rejected all the variations of the deal on the table. And today it has rejected approving the withdrawal agreement alone and continuing a process on the future. The implications of the House's decision are grave. The legal default now is that the United Kingdom is due to leave the European Union on the 12th of April, in just 14 days' time. That is not enough time to agree, legislate for and ratify a deal, and yet the House has been clear it will not permit leaving without a deal. And so we will have to agree an alternative way forward.
Well, in response to the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, Labour's Jeremy Corbyn, laid the blame for Britain's predicament at Mrs May's feet and called for her to resign.
We need to get a better deal. The country deserves a better deal, and I'm convinced that a better deal can be negotiated. And if members decide, the chance for people to have a final say. If we cannot do that on Monday, then I ultimately, and many others would agree with me, say no alternative other than having a general election to decide who rules this country in the future.
So that's what was going on inside the chamber of the House of Commons. Outside, thousands and thousands of people protesting. I spent the day talking to some of the protesters. At the heart of this story is a simple question asked of the British people 3 years ago. Do you wish to remain or leave the European Union? Well, today people from across the UK came to Westminster on the day that Britain was supposed to be leaving the European Union. Now, whatever the shortcomings of that referendum campaign, the referendum saw the biggest democratic exercise this country has ever seen. Britain voted to leave. Well, today the people came to Parliament to loudly remind their politicians of that result. And tonight at 11 p.m. London time, moments ago, Britain was supposed to have left the European Union. That will now, of course, not happen. The people who voted leave and the politicians sent here to represent them were today just a few metres apart. The politicians inside the chamber of the House of Commons, where they could hear the protesters chanting outside. Anna.
So, Jamie, what are the options for those sitting inside that chamber in the House of Commons?
Well, what is clear, I think, is that nothing is clear. No one's really got a guidebook for what happens next. The legal position is that technically, at least, the UK would leave the European Union on the 12th of April. However, dates and deadlines do not mean much in this twisting Brexit story. The weekend, I think, will be spent with a UK cabinet meeting discussing the options, the EU discussing its next moves, a Conservative leadership election is well underway, and tonight, of course, talk of the Prime Minister calling a general election if she doesn't get those wavering voters to support her. We will probably all be back here next week trying to find a way through this political maze. The Prime Minister might well have a fourth go at getting her Brexit departure plan through the House of Commons in a modified form. There are European elections coming up too, and those protesters I spoke to who gathered here today will show little mercy, I think, at the ballot box if Britain has to go through a European election. When it voted to leave the EU 3 years ago, neither the EU or the UK government would want that. Anand.
Thanks, Jamie. That's CGTN's Jamie Owen reporting from London.